Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode number 57 of Restitching the Tapestry. It's good to see all of you. It's been a very hectic week, at least for me, and it just feels really nice to be able to tune in and just have a conversation with you, Ari, and with all of you who are listening tonight. So it's gonna be delightful. Um, so tonight's episode is Bookathon, which means we are going to be talking about the books that we are currently reading and the books that we are wanting to read. And of course, you know, Ari and I, we have a substantial list of both because that's just what we do, right? So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing and how we've been doing. So Ari, what have you been up to and how have you been doing?
I posted a video today about how I'm doing. My friend Tony came to stay with me, and then he called me last night at midnight, like in the dead of night. I was like in bed, ready to go to sleep. He called me and he was like, "My mom's got COVID. I'm getting tested in the morning." And I was like, "No."
What great news to rain in the evening, right?
But he texted me at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He's like, "I'm negative."
Oh, good. That is a relief.
But it was like all night I was just like anxiety ball.
I honestly don't blame you. I would have been too. I know, like, I had a student probably about a month and a half ago tell me that they had COVID, and I literally was in close contact with this student because I was helping them with something.
Yeah.
So I, like, that whole night, I was like, great, like, great. Because like you, I've been trying, very to be very careful about exposure and so on and so forth. So I mean, I guess it's not surprising that we're gonna end up encountering it at some point, along the line. Good thing we're vaccinated. Woo!
And I still wear my mask.
Same here, and I still socially distance to the best of my ability. But yeah. Well, I'm glad that aside from that, you've been doing well.
Yeah.
How was your Halloween and did you do anything?
I gave away a tarot deck to Butterfly, and
Oh
I'm
yeah,
trying to send her a deck, but it's getting caught up in customs because she's in India.
customs. Ugh.
I'm like, give her deck.
Do you want to do a shameless plug for your channel? Because I think you mentioned that you were planning on doing
Oh,
another
tarot
giveaway.
time with Ari.
Oh, Deborah, I'm so sorry to hear that. Deborah just posted my uncle just passed away yesterday of COVID. We're really sorry for your
Sorry to hear
loss.
that.
It's just like this it's this cruel reminder that it's still here. Like we're still in a
Mhm.
pandemic and a lot of people I think have kind of lulled themselves into this false sense of security where they think that because everything's opened back up that everything's back to normal. It's not. Like until
Mhm.
everyone starts taking it more seriously, like losses are going to hit closer to home, and I'm sad that that's happened in your circle. Yeah.
Yeah, last week my aunt died of COVID on my dad's side, and her husband died of COVID too.
Oh my god. I'm so sorry about that.
But they were anti vaxxers. They didn't want to get vaccinated, and so they got COVID and they died from it.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, it's really sad, but also like they should have gotten vaccinated because maybe it could have been a little bit better for them.
Right.
But even if you get vaccinated, it still can be bad. It's the luck
It
of the
just
draw.
yeah, it just like if you're vaccinated, at least it prevents it from being like fatal, usually, right? RP says, I've had family members get COVID, but they recovered thankfully.
Hmm.
Same here. I'm thankful every day. Like both of my parents had COVID and they both recovered. But like that really hit close to home. When I hear that, like I know many of my students approach me and they're like, oh, there's been COVID deaths in my family, so on and so forth. it's hitting way closer than people realize, and I don't think it's talked about enough.
And I think that's why we have so many problems in the the industry right now is like so many, like just being able to fill like jobs has been difficult because like so many people have died from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like everybody knows at least somebody who's died from COVID or knows somebody who knows someone who died from COVID.
Agreed. Yeah. Yep. I don't know what is going on with my camera today, but it will not sit the way I want it to sit. Okay. But like all that we can do is continue having conversation and hopefully I know we've been holding out this hope for over a year now, which is terrifying to think, but we're just hoping that people continue to take it seriously, and for those who aren't taking it seriously, to begin taking it seriously finally for a change.
I feel like this is going to stretch out to 5 years. Like I feel
Probably.
like it's going to take a while for this to like be okay.
Especially economically too. Like I really feel like for the next few years on a worldwide scale, we're going to be recovering from this in an economic sense for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there any other like recent events that we should talk about?
Greenland's ice sheet is melting, and it's the worst year of the melt. In 2000, oh god, I just had in 2011 to 2020, it had the ice sheet melted enough to flood all of New York.
Mm.
But there was the ice sheet averages about 370 billion tons of water every year. So on average, it raises the sea level to 1 millimeter a year.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2019, the runoff was 527 billion tons. So like it's higher. So it's like it's getting worse and like it's accelerating and like it's going to flood cities that are near water.
Yeah. It really amazes me that there are still people who do not think that climate change is a thing. Like I just like at this point there is so much evidence that ignoring it is willful ignorance.
I just like the fact that like there's like stuff coming out about Greenland, like it just and like the top three snow caps in Africa are threatening to be melted too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that too. I just like, oh, I wish people would take things more seriously. You know?
Yeah, I saw a news report too that said the first droughts from climate change were starting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know, like, none of this is to fearmonger, of course, on our parts, like, because it is reality, you know? Like, as human beings, we have to accept what reality is and what the science is and do what we can to limit what's happening and potentially reduce or recover from what's happening, right?
In the words of Greta Thunberg, our house is on fire and you should act as though this house is on fire and act accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. All right. So we're going to start transitioning into talking about Bookathon for tonight. Of course, before we start, let's go through our show's mission statement, okay? Many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us. Much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address it. This fray has gotten worse with the rise of social media because together, collectively, we're able to share in trauma as it goes viral, and we are able to experience in real time on a mass scale a collective grief and outrage. Unfortunately, many of these atrocities happen to marginalized communities. And our goal with this show is to use our privilege not only to educate ourselves, but to also model our own self education as a means of perpetuating what we're learning as well. Okay. So, and what better way to do that than through books, right?
Books.
Books. So, where should we begin with our book talk?
What books are you currently reading?
I thought you would never ask. So, I am reading your book right now, David Lynch's After Me by Ari Whipple. Go buy it, everyone. It is on Amazon. And it was published by, oh, who was it?
Gorilla Genesis Press.
Gorilla Genesis Press. Go check it out. It's an amazing book. As someone who's been on his own mental health journey, being able to read these intimate details is really meaningful to me. Like, I know, like, you've told me about your experiences having manic episodes, and I've seen your videos where you've been in a manic state and your videos where you were reflecting on it. But being able to like read your journal entries and kind of get your thought processes as you're going through it was very fascinating to me. Very fascinating. Additionally, another thing, and we were just talking about this, what I love about this book is that it is a very multimodal book, meaning that it is a series of journal entries with images of art and photos and links to YouTube videos, and all of those woven together contribute to the narrative taking place in it. So nerding out big time. That's my first one. How about you?
So I am currently reading Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime.
Oh, yes. I've been thinking about that one too.
So he's in South Africa and it's about his childhood. I just started reading it and I was like, this is so good. He didn't grow up with like normal television. He grew up in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So like all of his references are biblical. So he's just like he because he wasn't allowed to have like normal things like other kids were. So like other kids would like talk about pop culture references and he was like, what? But he would like list off like biblical references and he could just like fling stories left and right and he had like his favorite stories.
That's so cool. I'll have to check it out because I know my partner really likes Trevor Noah. Christmas gift idea, I guess. Taylor's here. Hello, Taylor. It's good to see you. And by the way, for those of you who are listening and commenting, I fully hope that you will share with us what you've been reading or what you would like to read and why. It would be really fun to have a conversation, and it might give us some ideas of things that we may want to read as well, right?
Add to the list.
Woohoo. So is it my turn again, or do you have anything else?
It's your turn.
It's my turn. So RP says they've read Trevor Noah's book as well and that it's awesome. So another vote for Trevor Noah's book. Okay, so this book right now, I've read it once, but I'm reading it again. This is a poem collection, well, more like a poem anthology of selected pieces by Taida Chamaco, who is a Japanese poet. And what I love about Taida Chamaco is that she's like kind of like a very, well, she was a leading voice in Japanese poetry as a woman who was a poet. Because in Japan, like for a long time, women were often gate kept out of a variety of different areas, including artistic areas as well.
Amazing. That sounds like such a good book.
Well, and if you read any of my books, you know that I am really obsessed with tanka poems. Those are poems that are like 5 lines in length. They're kind of like a haiku, but they're a little bit longer. And Chamaco is very known for writing haiku poetry. In fact, what inspired me to actually get this book in the first place was I was teaching a literature class, and I teach it every winter semester, but I've been teaching this literature class, and I wanted to introduce my students to Tonka poems, and that's how I just did some research and found this poet
Nice.
and became like super obsessed. So I will at least read for you Tita Chamaco's biography for context. So Tita Chamaco is one of Japan's most important modern poets. Born in 1930 and passed in 2003, she gained prominence in her native country for her sensual, frequently surreal poetry and fantastic imagery. Um, Although Tada's writing is an essential part of post war Japanese poetry, her use of themes and motifs from European, Near Eastern, and Mediterranean history, mythology, and literature, as well as her sensitive exploration of women's inner lives, makes her very much a poet of the world. My camera is turning again because it has a mind of its own. Where was I? Make her a poet of the world. The Forest of Eyes, the title of this, offers English language readers their first opportunity to explore a wide selection from Tada's extraordinary oeuvre, including tanka and haiku in translation and in original Japanese. So, love this book. Took me forever to get
so
it.
good.
I know, I'm so like it's just a beautiful book. So, all right, I'm done blabbing about that one. Ari, it's your turn.
So I've been reading the Sangha series, and I haven't started this one yet, but it's volume 4 out of 10. So I have volumes 4 and 5, but I'm gonna read volume 4. And so basically, what it's about is a couple that are of two different species that are warring against each other, and they've been warring for like several hundred years. I think it might even be thousands of years. Like it's for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And she read this romance novel, and she thought of it as like this rebellious thing because it was between two interspecies like getting together and having a romance. Mm-hmm. So she read this like romance novel, and she was like really inspired by it. And so she fell in love with this prisoner who they had taken as like a prisoner of war, who was of the other species. And she fell in love with him, and they ran off together and had a kid. And apparently it's like gonna end the war, and like because it's like such a huge deal, and like people are trying to stop them and like trying to kill them and like trying to kill the kid, and like it's just so good.
A lot of killing. Attempted killing, right?
Well, because
that sounds super interesting though.
But it's because like they want to control, like they don't want the war to end. They have like vested interest in like keeping the war going.
Interesting. This really sounds like maybe after the stream, can you like send me a link to this book or series, because it sounds like something that would be up my alley for sure.
I can send you the first couple books.
That would be amazing. I would appreciate that. So in the comments, Taylor says, my husband is reading the most recent D&D manual, and I'm reading Moby Dick theoretically.
Moby Dick is so good.
Moby Dick. Oh my God. I have a rant about Moby Dick. So I do love Moby Dick. Let me preface by saying that it's one of my favorite pieces of classic fiction. However, when I was in college doing my undergrad, like in our upper level English classes, we were required to take a studies and texts course, which is like a focus, like it's a class that focuses on like the works of one author specifically. I wanted to take a class on Tolkien. However, the theme changed from semester to semester, and I didn't know that. And it kind of like shifted between like different faculty who were teaching it. So like whoever had like a specialty in a particular literary area would teach that class on a given year. And the year that I had to take it, it was Herman Melville's Moby Dick. And I read Moby Dick and loved it. But by the end of that semester, I was so exhausted of Moby Dick. We read Moby Dick, we compared it to the Bible, to Paradise Lost, to like 5 other things. And we read a few of Melville's other novels, most of which really, I mean, haven't gained the popularity that Moby Dick had. But by the end of that semester, like I was so exhausted of Moby Dick. And I think now that it's been like a decade since that happened, maybe I'll revisit Moby Dick and give it another read. So
Oh, so I read Moby Dick because it helped me gain a better understanding of 1800s Japan because of the whaling industry.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
So they talk about it. I took a history class on Corsica or Coursera. And they talked about Moby Dick as far as like the history. So I was like, let me read Moby Dick. So I read Moby Dick.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it amazing how certain things lead us into certain other things?
Right. But yours sounds more interesting, like
mine sounds
line by line.
Mine sounds like whining. That's what mine sounds like. Taylor says, my favorite translated book is Be With You by Tajuki Ichikawa. I don't think I've read that, but I've heard of it.
Oh, what's the name of the book?
P.S. While you're looking for that, I just need to tell you that I love that we're doing a Bookathon episode because I really wanted to do it. I can't remember what it was
called, but it was like a really good book. And I know what the cover looks like. I think it was called Pillows, because there was a cover of a pillow. Or was it Clouds? Oh, no, it was Asleep.
Asleep by whom?
Banana Yoshimoto.
Oh, okay.
That was my favorite one.
That's your favorite one?
Yeah, it's hard to describe because Banana Yoshimoto, have you ever read her?
Mm-mm. I've heard of her, but I've not read her.
She has like such an interesting way of like writing. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to definitely check it out. See, another thing about this is giving us reading ideas, which I love.
And then the The Strange Library by Haruki Murakami. I loved that book.
Yes. I've read bits and pieces of it, but yes, I agree 100%. RB says, I love graphic novels, LGBTQ plus books, and memoirs. Yes. Taylor says, my daughter reads a lot of Mrs. Pinnacle books and things illustrated by Greg Poprocki. RP says, have you guys read the books by Emmett Till and Matthew Shepard's moms?
No, but I do have a list of biographies that I want to read.
Yes, same here. I know I really I really should add these to it for sure. Have you, RP, and did you enjoy them? That's my question for you. If you would like to answer.
Okay, out of your list of biographies, pick one that you want to read.
Oh. Gosh, that's hard.
Maybe 2. I'll have you pick 2.
I mean, I don't have any biographies in my books that I have right now.
I have 2. I have I Am Malala.
Yes.
And Charles Manson, the CIA, and Secret History of the 60s Chaos.
Yes. Love those selections. I like any biography that I have is like buried. So it's in my other bookshelf. So I'd have to look, but um I have is Michelle Obama's one book a
That's on my
biography?
Audible list, Becoming.
Yes, I have not read that. I don't know if that's a biography though.
It is
It's an
a
autobiography,
memoir
a memoir. Okay, so a
of her
smidge
time in the
similar, but
White
not.
House.
Yeah. Arby says, I've been wanting to read I Am a Malala. I apologize. Taylor says, I'm only giving my nieces and nephews books for Christmas, so I've bought some old favorites. Coraline, Letters from Camp. Love that. Ari, is it your turn to share your next book that's on your reading that you're
I don't
currently reading?
know. I just shared a couple.
Oh, is it my turn then?
It's your turn. You have more
Okay.
currently reading books than I do.
I'm not making a lot of headway with my reading, unfortunately. The next book that I'm reading is actually a collection of essays by Donna Haraway. And the title of this collection of essays is Manifestly Haraway. So it uses the author's name as kind of like a play on words. But since releasing my book, Feats of Alchemy, like obviously I was doing some research on like the cyborg and why the cyborg as a figment or character has been so important over time. I stumbled across an essay titled The Cyborg Manifesto by Donna Haraway. And it really drew me in. It like kind of talks about like it talks about cyborg theory and how it applies to literature and how it applies to feminism specifically. And the reason I'm reading this is I want to apply it to the LGBTQ plus experience largely. I'm thinking about doing some like scholarly writing associated with that. We'll see how ambitious I am with that. I don't know how far I'll get, but I'm really excited to read it. It's been super interesting so far. Um and I've been nerding out big time. So that's my third item that I am reading.
Sounds like a really good endeavor, and I think you should pursue it. And I totally support this.
Oh, thank you.
Write
You
the
know, like
thing.
I was like, I don't know. I've mentioned that like I am really proud of my second collection of poems. Like don't get me wrong, I love Carbon Footprint, my first one, but I really am proud of the layeredness, if it is even a word, of the second book.
It just expands on the first book in so many other ways,
Yeah.
and it because I've read it, it's so good. It's I call some books that they like bite into you and like you have to really think about crunchy. It's very crunchy. You get into it and it just makes you think, and it makes you like feel certain ways, and like um it triggers you in certain ways, in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's that's the job of a good writer, is that they personalize it, makes the personalized experience for every person, um and but still maintaining their own integrity as a writer.
You're gonna make me cry. Oh, thank you. I one of my dear friends, Taylor knows this person, my friend Amy Schmidt, who used to work for a publisher and currently teaches, like she has had a lot of experience like publishing collections of poems, especially sci-fi poetry. She's kind of the one who inspired my direction into sci-fi poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And after she read Feats of Alchemy, because I like she was one of my reviewers, right? After she read it, she was like, Donnie, this is like in my top 10 favorite collections of poems I've ever read. And I'm like, I cried over that. Like I was just like, Amy, you have read probably way more collections of poems than I have ever even fathomed in my life working in publishing, right? So like that like was super validating. And that's why I'm like really excited to read these essays because I really think I found the genre that I'm passionate about when it comes to poetry. Like this strange amalgamation of sci-fi poetry, gay stuff, and nature stuff. Like the warping of nature in some way. Yeah, RP, you're more than welcome to. Go for it. So, Ari, what's next on your list?
So the book I'm currently reading is Consciousness Explained. It's a really thick, it's a thick book.
Oh, that is thick.
It's a beast. It's kind of like a textbook about the nature of consciousness and how we come to believe what we believe, and like how we come to our ability to like process reality. And
Interesting.
it's very fascinating, but it's also very thick.
See, like I like things like that. I mean, it's in a way similar to these essays that I was just talking about. Like as much as I love good fiction, sometimes I love reading things that are academic and philosophical too, right? Just to kind of like
I need a notebook to like write notes on it.
do
I,
it.
I need that. I need to go get one.
All
And
right,
I've
with
been meaning
how
to
many
for a while.
books you probably have in stock, I'm surprised you don't have one that could be designated for it.
I have fancy journals. I don't have like a notebook journal. Although I do have like yellow notepads that I could use, I suppose. But those only have 50 pages in them, and I would want like 100 pages or so.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, I agree completely. Yeah.
Okay, your turn.
The last one on my list of what I'm currently reading, and I've read this book once already, but I am reading my friend Heather Kinnicky, H.M. Kinnicky. I'm reading her first. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. We're giving Heather a shameless plug tonight. Heather, we hope you see this. But this is Heather's first book in her trilogy of fiction novels titled the Clandestine Series. So think of the Clandestine Series as Harry Potter meets Hunger Games, but it takes on like this very unique kind of like grungy academic style and perspective. Like it's super fascinating to me. And what I love about this, and if you ever check out Heather's stuff, go check out her YouTube channel, HM Kinnicky, because she has some conversation bits about these books. But these books have been sitting as like drafted manuscripts in her belongings for like 30 years.
Nice.
So like this is like the culmination of like what she's been creating her whole life. So I think it's super meaningful.
So who's the publisher?
She self-published this actually.
Wow, it looks
Yeah.
good for self-publishing.
Heather is very Heather being, she used to teach English and she's had like a lot of like writing and editing experience. Like I knew that she would definitely have a very strong attention to detail when it comes to formatting. In fact, when I finished Feats of Alchemy, I asked her to look at the formatting to be like, hey, does this look presentable? Like, so yeah, like it just proves that self-publishing is the thing and it works and it's valid. And I think in the writing world, like there's kind of like this negative connotation associated with self-publishing, and it's kind of elitist when you think about it. Like it's very gatekeepy. We could have a whole nother episode about that. But like I think it's so empowering that Heather was able to put this together on her own, put it out, and start her writing career.
And market it. Yeah,
And market
she
it.
did really good at marketing it.
Yeah. So I strongly recommend it, and I know you strongly recommend it as well. So definitely check it out.
Heather's a good writer. I read her poem that she did for the Recovery Project, and I was just like, I love your writing.
Oh my God. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Do I have her poem collection sitting right here? Underneath. I have so much junk in my office. It is obnoxious, Ari, right now. I have like boxes of books laying around. Okay. Heather's poetry collection, The Airless Door. I helped edit it, and I wrote the blurb for it on the back, or at least somewhere in there. It's a beautiful poem collection. Definitely get it. It's very raw. It's largely mental health inspired, and check it out. 1000%.
Taylor, did you know that I wrote a Kindle Unlimited book that was a piece of smut?
Okay, Ari, you need to shamelessly plug this.
No, I don't.
Oh my God, I want to read it.
No, it's so bad.
Ari, before I did any of this, before I wrote Godzilla fan fiction, even
if you go under my author's name on Amazon, if you scroll all the way down, you'll find it.
Well, damn it, I'm going to be looking now. But I am obsessed with books like this because I used to write smut a long time ago, and I used to actually have a following too, but I had like a pen name. So
I was Pandora Manning. I think at one point I had a Kindle book on there, but I think I unpublished it finally. I wrote The Affair.
Manning?
I put The Affair, and I definitely put a smutty picture of my torso up as the cover.
This is the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life.
I was like, because it was like, I thought maybe I could just like publish a couple smut books and like make some fast cash, but nobody read my smut. So then I was very sad. I was sad smut.
Oh no.
So then I stopped doing it.
Smut for smut trade. I used to write a lot of smut on DeviantArt.
Can we be smut authors? Can we just make Kindle books and put them on put them on for Kindle only for digital?
You don't even need to ask. I'm just gonna say yes. That just sounds so fun. And see, it's so funny. Like, people criticize books like that, but they're easy to consume and they're easy to get invested into, right? And why should we shame anything like that, right? I'm gonna slap my camera tonight. There we go. Okay, Ari, what's next on your list? Because I finished my list.
So these are books that I want to read, but I haven't started yet. So
Jared's book, American Reality, is amazing. Go check out Jared Morningstar's channel.
I also have Amanda's book on my list, but I couldn't find Amanda's book. I think I took it off my bookshelf and it went somewhere in the bowels of my room, and I don't know where it is now. So I have to find Amanda's book.
Definitely.
Her book is really supposed to be good too.
It is really good. I actually have started writing a review for it, but I haven't finished it. But I do, like, Amanda's book is really good. Like, I love Jared and Amanda because they are like this literary power couple.
But I loved American Fries, so I think I would like American Reality.
For sure. Like, I think that, like, as much as I love American Fries, I think that American Reality is very, like, I would say it ups the visceral factor.
Right. It's a lot darker.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm always for a dark,
which is surprising because American Fries is pretty visceral at certain points where He has like Johnny, is it Johnny Cash's ghost?
Yeah. And that short story, Slice of American Pie. I think that's
Slice,
what it's called.
yeah, where he
Yeah.
has the game show.
Brilliant stuff. Jared, we're hopefully giving you a lot of PR tonight. I'll have to send this to him and be like, Jared, we're talking about you. We're gossiping. Okay, so that was that the first one on for your list of things that you're reading?
Yes.
Or you're wanting to read. Okay, I'm going to start out with things that I'm going to reread. That I've not read in a long time. The first thing being Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring by Tolkien.
What?
I think this was one of the theatrical release versions of it. So I used to kind of make it, this was a long time ago, I used to make it my tradition to read Tolkien's Lord of the Ring trilogy every year, like around the holidays. But I haven't in a long time, and I think I'm gonna change that. I just need to. I think that the thing I really love about the Lord of the Rings is that there's also a lot of poetry present in the books. And it's really interesting kind of like doing a deep dive on like the poetry. So what's the next one you're wanting to read? I love that we're like trading off.
Do I want to look at poetry? Oh, this was a Netflix movie, and I wanted to read it. Monster.
Ooh.
So I watched the Netflix movie, but I didn't read the book, and I want to read the book, even though I know what the twist is at the end. But I definitely want to read it.
Yeah, I want to check that one out too. 1000%. Taylor says started The Hobbit with Gwen and got the illustrated version. Oh my god, yes. Arpy loves Walter Dean Myers.
Oh, the author? Yeah.
This is another bit of shameless promotion for one of my friends, who is Alyssa Goji Geek 101 here on YouTube. I collaborate with her from time to time. She wrote a novel titled The Mermaiden Daughter Darkness. I actually was one of the copy editors early on in the process, and I got to read it. And I also got to write I wrote a review for it / a blurb, so on and so forth. And it's a really, really awesome and very dark fantasy horror book. So definitely check that out if you can. And it's also self-published, but like again, this is another author.
It is a very thick book.
It is. It's 457 pages.
Oh my god.
Like Alyssa has put so much work into this, and I'm so proud of her for it. Like, and it's really good. Like one thing that I really like about Alyssa's writing is that she's very good with sensory details. So if you are the type of person that loves like visceral sensory details in something, Daughter Darkness is a good selection. So plus if you're into fantasy, like why not, right?
Right. I'll have to look that up.
She also just released a poetry collection connected to the main character in this book, that I also had a chance to copy edit for her, and she just released it, and I'm waiting for it to arrive, but it's really good as well. So anyway, your turn.
I wanted to read Salvage the Bones, and it's about a hurricane coming to Mississippi. This town called Sauvage, which means savage in French. Sauvage, Mississippi.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what genre do you think it would like what subgenre of fiction would that be, do you
It's
think?
slice of life. It's definitely about a family that's like going through something.
Mhm.
A hurricane is coming, and so like it's just like people who are like preoccupied with their lives as this like major event is coming.
That sounds interesting to me. I'm all for like a slice of life type of book with a natural disaster component. Love it. Um, the next book that I want to read is a book. It's an autobiography sent to me by a dear friend named Amy Kelso, and it's titled "It Takes a Forest to Raise a Tree." I've not read it yet, but I've heard phenomenal things about it. So it's going to be my goal to read it and take it in and enjoy it. So I guess I did have a biography of sorts.
I have so many. I have more biographies, but I don't want to go through them all. I I I have big piles, and I'm just like pulling from different piles right now.
I have 3 more books.
I have so many books. It's sad. And I haven't even gotten to my Kindle or my Audible accounts.
Oh, God. Yes.
So I'm just gonna pick 3 books randomly and we're gonna go from there. So this is one of my old books that I got. It's an antique. It's one of my I don't know if I'll ever read this book, but I really want to read it
Hmm.
because it's very Wes Anderson. It's something that would look like it would show up in a Wes Anderson movie. And I want to be that type of person that would read this kind of book because I want to be in a Wes Anderson movie, like live that life, be that aesthetic that I am in a Wes Anderson movie. And I want to put it in a little suitcase with my record player.
That sounds iconic. I would love to live that life too.
I just want to be a Wes Anderson character in real life.
Um so my next one is actually 2 books. So background story. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was invited to go to this business expo. Well, it wasn't really a business expo. It was like a career fair at a high school. And one of my former high school teachers who teaches at this school, she was just like, Donny, come do this. And I was like, okay. She was like, come talk about being a professor and being an author. And I was like, sure, why not? So I went and I was like, she of course was part of the coordination effort. So there were a lot of different like people representing different career areas there. And I was seated next to my high school creative writing teacher. So not only was like my one former English teacher facilitating this, but I was also getting to hang out with another former high school teacher who happened to teach creative writing. Um, and she was like my gateway into writing poetry back in like 2006.
Nice.
So I did not know that she had written books, and I am astounded that I didn't know this. And she wrote 2 traveler guides. So she wrote this first one. When was it published? Let me look. This was published in 1999. JK, it was first published in 1992. Um, Michigan Lighthouses.
What?
She wrote this. I've seen this book on Amazon before because it's been pretty popular in like travel guides. So like it's a traveler's guide to 116 Michigan lighthouses. It has maps, directions, stories, like details about the lighthouses. It's so cool. Like,
I bet that was a fun book to write.
right? Like it was. She said that it was because I was like asking her because I was just like, tell me. Oh, Taylor says that her phone died. What did I miss? We've been talking about books that we want to read, and I've been gushing about one of my high school teachers who taught me creative writing and the fact that she's published traveler guide books.
And I talked
like,
about wanting to be a Wes Anderson character.
And yes, and yes. Sorry, that just broke me. Additionally, she also recently published, let me see when this was published. Oh, maybe not. Maybe 1996. I clearly am horrible with years, but she also published a book of a guide to 199 Michigan waterfalls.
What?
I know, and she did like the photography in the book as well, I believe. Which, how did I not know this?
Find all those waterfalls.
I don't like they just took time and traveled Michigan and did this. I imagine it took like a lot of research to do travel guides. Like, I'm gonna stick with poetry collections because I don't think I could do this. I'm lucky I can write an email. Your turn.
What's a good one? Oh, I want to read a book of Wordsworth poems.
Oh, I love Wordsworth. Yes.
I haven't really gotten into his poems, but I bought it because I was like, it was at a secondhand store, and it was only like a few dollars.
Yeah, Wordsworth is phenomenal.
I think it was like $6, $7, and I was like, I could read Wordsworth
for sure. Like, and I'm glad that you mentioned that you went to. You said was it a thrift store? You said, or an
secondhand store?
Secondhand store. So, like, if any of you are interested in poetry, like, definitely if you find something like that, get it. Like, because sometimes older printings, and that might be an older printing, sometimes they're not even published anymore. So, super important. So, my last book is a complete deviation from anything that I've shown. It is a gardening book.
Yay!
Native plant gardening for birds, bees, and butterflies. I've been doing some research on how destructive invasive plant species are. And I really want to do like a garden of like native plants that will better help like pollinators, so on and so forth. So I'm gonna like read this and see if I can get any pointers from it, and so on and so forth. And basically, it's a listing of like different non-invasive local plants that are really good for wildlife. I don't know what that even was. So.
Do you want to get to the questions? I feel
Sure.
like let's skip a few and go down to.
We've really gone on tangent. Well, I've gone on tangents especially.
What's your favorite movie series that's been adapted from a book?
Lord of the Rings trilogy, hands down. How about yours?
Sphere.
Ooh.
The Michael Crichton novel from
yes.
the 90s, and it was made into a movie in 1998.
I feel like Crichton's very underrated.
It was so good. It was like the movie was actually pretty good. Like it definitely, like, it was different than the novel, but I thought it was good.
That sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I need to revisit Crichton again because I remember reading some of his stuff a long time ago, but it's been a long time ago. I need to change that.
What was your least favorite series or movie/series that you think got ruined?
Like that ruined from an adapted book?
Mm-hmm.
I really love, one of my favorite fantasy series is Christopher Paolini's the inheritance cycle, which is that it has the book Aragon, Eldest. So it's like a book about dragons, like a fiction book. Very
Right.
much like inspired by Lord of the Rings. Very good. Like I loved the books. I read them when I was in high school, and I adored them. The 2006 movie was dreadful. Like taking 4 books in a series and condensing it into one film is a bad idea. So much was left out. Like,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like, now if the movie was like maybe the length of a Lord of the Rings or a Harry Potter movie, that would have given it something. But it was like a standard film length of like 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours. So a lot of context was lost. And unfortunately, since then, there have been no attempts. Taylor thinks that the Harry Potter movies vastly improved on the books.
Yeah, the books really were lacking compared to the movies.
Yeah.
It really kind of fleshed out the books a lot better.
And mind you, I'm probably going to get, Rowling loyalists eviscerating me like I've had before. But I'm just not a fan of Rowling's writing style.
I feel like she's too matter of fact, and I don't I read the Lord of the or Harry Potter series just recently, like within the last like 5 years, like in its entirety, and it wasn't memorable. It was just like maybe it's just because I didn't read it as a child, so I don't have like that like nostalgia effect.
Right.
But it didn't do much for me. And this is someone who has a Harry Potter tattoo.
Right.
So
So it just goes to show you that like some writing styles are just you know. And I'm willing to bet that Rowling would argue that it's to make more connection with a wider audience, like more like matter of factness, like you were saying, right? So
and some of her philosophy in her books is kind of messed up. Like the philosophy of like the goblins being the money keepers, and they're kind of like they kind of seem like they're Jewish. Like it's very anti-Semitic.
I mean, we could have a whole episode about Rowling's troubling social beliefs.
And like the elves and like how they like are enslaved and like nobody frees them. They just like being this way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, like Arby says, I prefer the books, but not a fan of her bigotry. Amen to that.
Yeah.
So, Ari, we have a few minutes left. Let's ask a couple more questions. What turned you off on certain books? Like, what are your pet peeves when you're reading a book that really just, ooh.
When they get too overly, I've read religious books, but like when they get too like, this is the one true God and it's the only way and your way is like, when they get like too Catholic for me, too like Christian. This is the one true God and this is my interpretation of the Bible and it's not actually what is said in the Bible. This is just how it is. Mm-hmm. And like marriage is between a man and a woman. I read books that I had to put down because they said things like that, and I was
bigotry. Yeah,
it's just you start reading them and it's just like sci-fi novels try to mask it too, and like they'll have religious undertones, and I hate those kind of sci-fi books. Have you ever read any sci-fi books like that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. You can definitely tell like that the personal views of the author comes through in instances like that.
I feel like I can't remember any specific one, but I remember reading types of books. And like I feel like Dune is kind of a religious book, but like
It's been so long since I've read Dune, and I really have been kind of wanting to revisit it because of the movie, but I haven't mustered the gumption yet.
because they talk about like the Bene Gesserit and like they talk about like how he's like the ultimate like but they temper that in Dune Messiah. Like in Dune he's like supposedly like the ultimate and like there's kind of like this positivity with him being
Yeah.
not spoilers.
Hashtag spoil. For me, my biggest pet peeves, at least right now, because my pet peeves like shift from time to time. Right now, my biggest irritation has been queer baiting or token gayness in
Oh yeah.
characters. We could do a whole episode on like token gayness and queer baiting separately in of themselves, but you can really tell when an LGBTQ plus character is just tossed into something without giving it much thought, right? They end up embodying stereotypes.
That's true with any marginalized group. I
Oh,
feel like they do that a lot, and like or writers who are white writing about black characters or other marginalized characters, like heterosexuals writing about gay characters, like
mm-hmm.
or just somebody who's not of that marginalized group of the majority population writing about a marginalized population.
Yeah, 100%. I can't even remember what book this was, and this has been like a decade ago. But I read this book. It was like it wasn't exactly sci-fi. It was more like it was more fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had a few LGBTQ plus characters, and each of them kind of like embodied a lot of different stereotypes. But all of them either died, were exposed to like trauma that like drove them mad, or were like they just left the narrative altogether.
Are you kidding me?
And I remember thinking like for a person to do this
That's
to
what I'm talking about, that religious undertone.
oh yeah, like to me, like at first I was like, oh, look at all the representation, that's good, right? Like that's great. But like it that all that representation was undone heinously. So like to me, I really believe that that person was including LGBTQ plus characters to follow trends as opposed to creating meaningful content
It's like
where
they can say, "Oh, I had an LGBTQ plus character in my book," and it's like, yeah, but you had them die horribly and you tortured them.
right, or expose them to like other sorts of like trauma that like, and there was like no resolution, nothing. And now don't get me wrong, like I don't always expect a happy ending to everything, right? But when you look at something and you see that many characters experiencing the same thing, that to me that's kind of suspicious. Like that's a little biased in my opinion.
It's
So
like, when does it become less about the story and more about the writer's opinion?
precisely. Yep. So we have a couple more questions. Ari, what really draws you in when you're reading a book?
Oh, so many things draw me in. I am multifaceted. I love so many different genres. Uh, if you have a good hook on a book, you will pull me in. Like, if
Yep.
you get me on the hook, whatever that hook is, you get me on the first like few pages, first 40 pages, I'm done. I said I'm going to read the whole thing.
Same here. A hook gets me too.
But it's like so what did I like about the hooks? Like it's got to usually be something dynamic, and it's got to be something that like, what am I thinking of? There was one I read called "The Ghost in the Family," or the ghost doesn't live here anymore, I think is what it was called. And it's about this family from Jamaica being related to this rich white family, and one was descended from slaves and one was descended from the slave owners, and so their stories just keep intermingling over and over again throughout history, and it's so fascinating just to see like their family drama. And like the hook was that the dad had like left the mother in Jamaica, and his kids were going back to Jamaica because the mom had died, and so that was like a big part of the story. But the kids found out about the heiress, and the white heiress was like, I got my money from slaves, from the Jamaican rum slavery trade. She's like, because they were doing sugarcane. She's like, I need to do some reparations here. And so it was sort of like, just like finding these family members and trying to do reparations for something that her family had like done so horribly over, and like fighting the family members that had been like marginalized, and like trying to like heal those family wounds.
That sounds really interesting.
It was so good. It was so good. It was slow moving and it took me forever to read, but it was so worth it in the end.
Well, and sometimes books like that are slow reads for a reason. Like the author probably wants that, right? Because there's so much to process.
Right.
I know for me, things that really draw me in books are instances like that where we see like some degree of suspense that gradually becomes layered, right? That like builds onto something. But I also love seeing writers taking risks. I love seeing an experimentation with formatting. I love seeing multimodal inclusion, like your book, Ari. Like seeing you write this book and like it's a novel or like a memoir, I guess. Would you characterize your book as a memoir, David?
It's biographical fiction.
Biographical fiction. But it also contains elements of different genres, right? Like memoir is often very journalesque as well. So it's kind of like a hybrid type of text that includes those elements, images, links, all of that. Like I love being drawn in by those types of things. And that could simply be an influence of my growth as a writer as well, because even in my own stuff, I've been branching out and trying to experiment more too. So I love that type of thing when I read books. So we've had a really comprehensive conversation and we've talked about so many things tonight.
And we didn't even touch on everything that we wanted to talk about.
And what else is new? That we always do that.
We're gonna have to do another episode sometime.
We will definitely do another episode because I really enjoyed talking about this. So for our parting words tonight, Ari, what advice do you have for people who aren't really readers but may want to branch into it?
So if you are having trouble reading, like if you get stuck, first of all, don't ever read a book that you don't want to read. Just don't DNF it. Did not finish it and start a new book. You don't force yourself to read something that is painful to read. Second of all, branch out and read audiobooks or books, and Kindle books or books, and books or books. Books are books, of course.
Right.
But like, don't tie yourself down to one type of book. if you listen to an audiobook while you're working out at the gym or just like driving in your car for 15 minutes, that means you've gotten some reading in that day.
Exactly. I love that. Reading can be so diverse, and that's what makes it fun. You know?
Yeah.
Well, my friends, I think that we're definitely going to have a part 2 to this episode. So, because, Ari and I love our reading, right? So we're going to talk about reading as much as we talk about writing. All right, friends. Well, thank you for tuning in again tonight. We will see you again next Thursday. We love you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.